Hello, everyone, and welcome to She Plays the podcast. I am super excited today to be joined by a trio. I'm super pumped to have the Future Millionaires here, the staff of Future Millionaires. We've got Allie, Amanda, and Haley. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
I would love for you guys to tell people what Future Millionaires is, and then we'll get into the backstory of how you guys met and decided to start this thing.
Yeah, so we are a team of three jokesters who love women's sports. We started it's almost been a year and a half since we founded Future Millionaires. And it was sort of born out of the Women's World Cup back in 2019. And I was on Instagram. I was so into the World Cup. I was so hungry to find any kind of content about the U.S. Women's National Team, any of the players. And the only and best content I could find were from like 13-year-old fan accounts, like 13-year-old girls stalking the players. And I was like, there's gotta be something better. And at the time, there just really wasn't better coverage of women's sports. And so I went to work the next day and I asked Amanda, I said, Amanda, we've got to start covering women's sports and we have to do it with like a little bit of humor. So that's why we called Allie. Allie's really got a nice sense of humor. And, you know, the goal of it was not to just cover women's sports, but it was to add like some humor and like pop culture to the dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, a couple posts that you've had just recently, you had the Bachelor theming to it and the Kardashians. So it really is a unique voice. I'm wondering where the name came from.
You know, we were talking, so much of the conversation that summer was around equal pay, right? And so much of our lives, honestly, in our day jobs is centered around equality and equal pay too. And so we just saw these athletes that were like iconic in my life. And the fact that they're not paid the salaries that their counterparts on the men's side are paid was just wild to me. So, you know, we were kind of hoping that with our efforts and the collective efforts of everybody who's supporting women's sports, that these athletes that we cover will become future millionaires. And we also sort of hoped jokingly that we'd also become future millionaires by starting this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on. People who invest in women's sports, there's going to be a return. It's a wise investment to make. So I'm right there with you. I think there is money to be made by promoting women's sports and female athletes. So that's awesome. So what was, you wanted to do this idea, you got the team together. Then what happened? Because you said it's been a year and a half. So I'd love to hear just about that journey.
Yeah, so like Haley mentioned, we saw this opportunity to take women's sports out of this silo that it's been placed in and connect it to larger cultural conversations. Because, I mean, we all know the stats, right? We know that women's sports are undercovered. We know that that it's sexist. We know it, all of these things. So that was obviously our first way into it. And so we just kind of kept going with that and connected it to these larger cultural moments because we felt like no one else was really doing that. So it was honestly pretty fun and pretty easy. And that's what we loved about it, is that every day it was like hilarious for us of like making these posts, making these connections and finding ways to make women's sports more relevant to a larger audience. Because that was a huge opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think so too. And like another like really simple part of it too is like when you look at men's sports, we feel like we know like LeBron James. And I think for a lot of these women, like we don't know them as intimately as we do these huge mega male stars. And we just wanted like people to just get to know them more. Because I think once you get to know them more, you're more invested, and you love it for the sport and how great they are and everything too. But if you know them, more personally and their friendships and like their weird cars they're driving from the dealerships, you're more invested overall. And to just sort of create honestly be another outlet, like Haley was saying, for the World Cup. I mean, ESPN didn't even have, it was on Fox, but like there was no like huge pre-show. I mean, for the Super Bowl, first of all, NFL Live's on all year round, but there was no real like pre-show, post-show, all of that. And so we just feel like we're also just like another outlet to like help grow the game, make it more accessible for people, and like be funny and have like a pop culture edge to it too, like Amanda said.
Yeah, I was shocked. I don't know if you guys follow Power Plays, the Lindsay Gibbs newsletter that she puts out, but she did that, you know, kind of wrap up of the WNBA and saw that they still only got like 3% of coverage, even though they finally had all the games on. So it's still like, even a year and a half later that you've been doing this, there's still so much room to grow. But I was seeing like you've got the attention of some big time people like Elena Deladon and Sarah Spain. I mean, what's that feel like when you see
the
people
screaming
Oh my God.
when something like that happens? We can't believe it. Like, we're so like in awe of them. They're so cool and like amazing, and like we're really obviously super excited. Like the other day, Sydney LaRue reposted something, and we were just like my wife will be like, what happened? And I'm like, and you just lose our minds. It's so much fun.
and
Oh yeah, I have a full on like alter ego where I'm like best friends with Sarah Spain, and we're just like completely equals. And like Elena Deladon, like I just imagine her like laughing at like a joke I made, and I lose it. It's wild.
Yeah, our egos are getting huge. It's probably not a good thing.
But it is amazing, and I think that's something that is unique to the women's side too, is that you really can connect with people, connect with like superstars in ways that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get to in a year and a half with the men's side.
Yeah,
Well, it's
insane.
wild. Go ahead, Amanda.
It's just insane to think that we have the WNBA MVP commenting and reposting our stuff. You know, like that if you compare it to the men's side, it's insane.
Yeah,
awesome.
and going back to what you were saying, it's like this happened within a year and a half. You know, when we started, we were having the time of our lives, and like the only people laughing at our jokes were our moms and our sisters, because they were the only ones who were following us. And so to get to the point now where we're getting attention from the league's biggest names, it's just wild. It's really wild, and it's really gratifying too. Yeah.
It's a testament to the good stuff you're putting out. I mean, it's funny, it's relevant, it's, you know, very timely. As soon as that announcement got made, I feel like you guys already had something out. And to the one today about Miami Marlins and having the first female GM in MLB. So, you know, you guys do put out a really good product, so you deserve it, it's just awesome to see. I'm curious, you know, you guys are sports fans. So who do you watch? Who are your favorite athletes? Did you play sports growing up at all?
I played soccer competitively growing up, and then soccer in college at the University of Utah. Go Utes! But so I'm a huge soccer fan and a huge U.S. Women's National Team fan. But I also played basketball and love the men's game, the women's game, and I'll watch literally any game on television. And I can sit and watch the NFL for like 8 hours straight. So like I'm a huge sports fan. Women's sports, just, you know, it's wild how much I know about the NFL and like the odd names on these teams. I just hope that we get to a place where like people like me will also know the kind of like third stringers on women's teams down the road.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I grew up since I was a tiny little kid, obsessed with sports. I love baseball, basketball. I love tennis, golf. I was watching the Masters. I'm just like a major sports fan. With women's sports, like I love Serena. We try to go to the U.S. Open every year. We went to the World Cup in France, which is by far the greatest sports moment of my life. It was totally incredible. I mean, when it comes to like favorites, I have like my favorites to watch, and then my favorites who are like on like social media ones. And like social media ones, if we're talking Asia Wilson, totally incredible. Liz Cambage is just so cool. I want to be her friend so bad. And then like watching, like, and I love Rapinoe. I love Serena. I love Naomi. It's hard. It's like I like love all of these women, and I want them to succeed so badly. And that goes for all of them, but some of them on social media, unbelievable.
What do you
Yeah,
think
and
of the? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm a little bit of an outlier here because I played sports all growing up, specifically soccer, but I wasn't really a big follower of either men's or women's sports until kind of recently. So for me, my favorite athletes were always the ones who kind of crossed that barrier. So like Megan Rapinoe saying, "I'm not going to the fucking White House" was like hilarious for me. And anything obviously like Naomi Osaka wearing the masks for Black Lives Matter, all of that kind of stuff is really what stands out to me and in my world.
Do you think Joe Biden will invite them to the White House
Oh,
just for like?
He's gotta. He's
of it?
gotta.
100%.
I really hope he does. That
Yeah,
would be
it's going down for sure.
one of the biggest trolls that could happen.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments was when Joe Biden and Megan Rapinoe were doing a live.
Oh,
And,
so sweet.
you know, he's from Delaware, and Elena Delle Donne's from Delaware too. And he was like, we got to get you out here to Delaware to meet Elena Delle Donne.
So good.
And Megan's like, oh, Sue Bird's sitting right here.
Like, okay, Joe.
Unbelievable.
I love Joe Biden so much.
That's amazing.
It was a real classic moment.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a boomer instance right there, I guess.
Huge.
Yeah. So you said you follow Allie, you follow Asia Wilson. What were you thinking when Asia and Derica had their like post WNBA bubble? They were
You
like,
should have seen the group chat.
Oh, the group chat was going off.
I was freaking out.
yeah.
So at first I'm like, they have to be kidding. Like for sure they're kidding. But then, you know, when you have anxiety and then you can't think clearly, that's what happened to me. Where I was like, wait, I don't know. Now I don't know. And I tried to post every single one on our story. And then at the end, finally, because they were carrying it on, but it felt like forever. And then they were like, you guys need to relax. And we're like, we were just panicked, okay? We didn't know what was going on.
And they were throwing like legit digs at each other.
Real,
It was
yeah, they
Fire
were like,
bombs.
this is
Fire bombs.
deal. Yeah.
Well,
I had
and
my
Allie,
popcorn ready.
you played it so cool, Allie, because like I'm always on like celeb breakup watch, like athlete couple breakup watch. Like I'm always taking like these like little hints of something to like the nth degree of drama. And so I was sure, I'm like, oh, this is a friendship split for sure. And then they were like, oh, we're just playing. And I was like, oh, I knew that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank God Allie was handling the stories that day because Haley and I were like all in on this. Like, wow.
It had a moment
really
of
the
getting
end.
too real, but I sort of knew, like in my heart of hearts, it was a joke, but I was scared.
That would have been like the craziest story to come out of the bubble.
Yes.
The demise of such a strong friendship. So
I know.
I'm thankful that did not happen. But yeah, what were some stories over the last 6 months? I mean, COVID has been a story itself, but has there been anything that you were like really excited to get a post out, or just in general, a story that you're like, yes, this is like moving the needle forward?
You know, I think that when COVID hit, the sports world stopped, you know, everything stopped. And we were at that point, you know, we had such crazy momentum. The U.S. women's national team had a couple of like, I think they just won the She Believes Cup, and then everything just kind of stopped. And we were growing like crazy up until that point. And so, you know, we were just anxious for sports to come back. So when the NWSL did come back, it was the first league back. They had, you know, successfully navigated COVID as a pro league, you know, and they were the first league to do that too. They were also the first league to respond to the, you know, racial injustice happening across the country. You saw that moment with like Julie Ertz and Casey Short just hugging each other and crying during the anthem. I mean, the NWSL, that to me, that coming back and them having such success in the comeback was incredible.
And I think so too, you know, the WNBA, I mean, it's nothing new for them. They've remained out front on social justice and equality issues, but certainly when they came back in the bubble and, you know, they had all the ideas for, you know, putting, you know, Black Lives Matter on the court and, you know, having the names on the jerseys. And obviously they were so united as a league, and we absolutely hate that this was happening and all of the horrible police brutality and all the victims that we were seeing publicly. God knows how many happen that aren't filmed. But they are just so powerful. And I think it makes you, it's so easy to be a women's sports fan because these women are all like progressive, like justice seeking. Like, I'm a fan of a lot of male athletes, and I know that their politics are probably horrendous. And I don't have that feeling when I'm rooting for these women that I love so much. So they were incredible. I think the WE loved covering that story. And also, like, after Kelly Loeffler is the senator that was appointed, and she's the, you know, owner of the Atlanta Dream, came out and sent like a letter to the WNBA commissioner, Kathy, Kath, as we call her in our chat, saying that the Black Lives Matter political movement like doesn't align with the league or the team. The players were like, no. And honestly, they really helped put the senator who was running to replace her, Reverend Raphael Warnock, like on. Like, we did a post on them. Like, I was having a hard time finding like his Instagram handle. And like after the W, I swear they helped him in the polls. And now he's facing a runoff in January, and we could, you know, could be big. So that was a story that I really loved. We all really loved covering.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with both of those examples. I feel like women's sports really showed up this summer. I mean, in COVID, for these social justice issues, I just feel like it was such a huge moment, and I'm excited to be so closely associated with that and being able to cover it the way we did. Another thing that I personally loved covering was the partnership between Glossier and the WNBA, because believe it or not, that was the first beauty partnership for the which it just feels like it's such a no-brainer to me. So just seeing them get the recognition in that space and showing that like the growth that's coming and the new audiences that they can see for the league, that was super exciting for me. And I just love Glossier too. So it was a win-win.
No, that's perfect. And there were quite a few sponsorships that jumped on board this year, which was exciting. I know Mountain Dew, Asia Wilson was like the first female ever. And so it was an exciting season to see a lot of that stuff come out. And I love that you guys mentioned the social justice, because I feel like that is such an integral part of women's sports. I feel like it's totally unique to that side of the industry and the fan base. I mean, I know the NWSL supporters groups were raising money to donate in Utah to, you know, Indigenous people. It was just like amazing that the fan bases themselves get so behind it. Does that lend, how do you guys work that into, you know, the messaging you do? Or does that a part of it?
We try and highlight any time any of these women step out. I mean, multiple women skipped. Renee Montgomery skipped, obviously Maya Moore. You know, they step away. Yeah, they step away from the game to work on these issues, which I just find to be incredible. Because it's not like they have hundreds of millions of dollars and it's like no big deal, no sweat. Like, they're really putting their money where their mouth is. It's yeah. So we try to highlight it anytime there's any sort of headline, because it's so important to us as women. We just love it.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, we set out when we started Future Millionaires, it really, I think for us, it was really important to be funny. That was like our initial goal, was to like find that humor, find that those like really interesting moments. But I feel like we recently, with this year especially, saw the opportunity to take a more serious tone and really highlight these voices surrounding these important issues in a way that, because it is so unique to the league and it is unique to the fans, and it's really nice to be able to use our voice to elevate that.
Well, and you know, we were founded, you know, beneath the shadow of, you know, equal pay chance. You know what I mean? So I feel like, you know, these topics that matter socially and like historically for women's sports are always going to be topics that resonate with us and resonate with our audience too.
That's awesome. And the weaving together, you know, you can still have humor, but there's some moments where it's like, okay, this is beyond that. I love that. Is there any post that you guys are like, oh, we killed it on that post, this is like my favorite ever? I have one, but any that you guys had?
I gotta remember. Wait, what did I have to think? I'm gonna find it. What is your favorite? I want to know what your favorite is.
Yeah,
mine is Are Men Okay? And it's the two guys playing soccer, and like, you know, because it's like they do it all the time. Like, Ronaldo's the worst of it all, I think, but that was hysterical.
Allie, when in the group chat, Allie was like, "Oh shit!" When she saw the caption of that, she was like, "The comments are going to go off."
Oh, okay. By the way, shout out to our followers because they just flame throw people in the comments because we'll get a lot of trolls, like depending upon, oh, I can dunk on her or whatever. And they just get absolutely roasted by our followers. And we used to respond and now we don't need to. But I think my favorite was it was when Jill Ellis was fired, or I don't know, left the team. And it's the GIF of Kamala waving. And it was like all the U.S. women's national team players because she's so like, okay, goodbye. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much.
That was a good one.
I'm going to cheat a little bit on mine. I have a favorite like style of posts that we do. We do these, I call them baller comments, but it's basically anytime two athletes are interacting in like the comment section of a post. And they're so funny. It's so funny to like find these like little gems of these comments of people. It's like typically Sydney Leroux, but they're like always so on point about what they're joking about or what they're saying. So I love like being able to be like a little bit of a sleuth there and like kind of find the messiness.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was particularly, I am obsessed with The Bachelor, like hashtag Bachelor Nation all day.
Yeah.
And so I was really pleased with this week's Bachelor.
That's a good one.
Spent a lot of time on that one. That was like high production value.
But it looked so real. It was great.
It looked really good.
Yeah, color matching the ABC website to that post was very time consuming. It like honestly, I spent so much time on it. Like, who knows if it paid off? But like for me personally, it was gratifying.
Yeah. Oh, you can hang it on your wall. I did this.
Yeah.
Clarity.
I will say Sydney Leroux it's funny the things that you just like have seared in your memory, and she is the queen of commenting. I feel I will forever remember when Dom posted something that's like, it's coming home, and she was like, oh, it's already home, it's in the cabinet drawer if you need to find it. I was like, she is a queen. She's just amazing.
I think it was Haley that coined her as the Chrissy Teigen of sports, and it's so perfect. She's exactly that girl.
Absolutely. Is there a dream collab that you'd have? Is there an athlete that you would just like die to get something going with?
That's so hard.
Look, Sid and Asia are like,
yeah.
Dream world. If we could get some of their humor injected into FMH, if we could get them to co-sign FMH, it would be incredible.
Yeah.
It's awesome. One day you'll get there. All right. So what do you hope continues to change for you guys, continues to grow? And then women's sports industry as a whole, what do you hope really progresses in the next year or 2 years? As I feel like we're on this upward trend in a really fast motion, but what are you guys hoping to see?
I feel like from looking at women's sports as a whole, the first thing we got to do is put them on networks consistently, like have dedicated channels, have dedicated time, money, ad dollars, all of that just like locked in so people can find them. I feel like during this summer, networks were like almost forced to put women's sports on TV because they had nothing else to show. And the audience showed up. Like, I think it was like almost 70% growth over year for the WNBA and like over 400% for the NWSL by just having the games on TV. And that's like without even a dedicated pre or post game. So just having that consistent schedule that people can find them, I feel like is like the obvious first no-brainer as far as growth.
And I think part of that too, it's like, we can't keep having like Nike, like the sold out jerseys. You can't get the W sweatshirt. Like they don't have like the World Cup jerseys ready. Like you're absolutely killing me. We have to make it more accessible. Everything about women's sports more accessible. Where to watch it, when to watch it, the ad money, being able to buy stuff. Like we will give you our money if you make it available. So I think that goes hand in hand with that.
And the last thing I'd add to this is that I would love to see the language around women's sports shift a little bit. right now it's like very rah, and it's been like very rah, hashtag girl boss, girl power since like I was in high school. And don't get me wrong, these women are powerful. They are girl bosses. But I would also argue that they're really, really cool. They're stylish. They're intelligent. They're women. They're not little girls. I mean, these are like powerful business women who are starting their own ventures, media companies, clothing companies. So I want to kind of see the language and the way that we treat women's sports to be less infantilized and more like celebrated as like, no, these are power players in the sports world and in the business world.
Love it. Love all of it. You're so right. That's awesome. Do you guys have anything fun in the works kind of that you were starting to think up for the Olympics? Hoping it happens next year, but is that something you'll cover?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were trying to like go, like, you know, we were like, oh my God, we could do like stories, but like, you know, who knows,
Yeah.
you know, when it's actually going to happen. But yeah, that definitely was going to be like a huge, we were like setting up for what we were going to cover with it and everything. So
yeah, it's so big for us because the Olympics are kind of one of the few times throughout the year that women's sports are really seen on an equal playing field with men's sports. So, I mean, it's such a bummer we had to wait another year and hopefully only another year. But there's some really big things happening. So we're pretty excited.
Can you imagine the post you could do about Katie Ledecky just leaving everyone behind? Like, where is they're at the mall? I don't even know. Gosh, that would be so cool. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast today. We love what you guys are doing. And where can people find you, follow you, all that good stuff?
So we have our sort of Instagram, which is where you'll find most of our humor, at Future Millionaires. And just remember that Heirs is HEIRS. We've got our website, futuremillionaires.com. And we just finished season 1 of our podcast. So we'll be coming back with more podcast episodes in the near future.
Awesome. Well, we will put all the links in the show notes. So thanks again for joining. And we look forward to just all the laughter we're going to keep having. Hopefully, you know, I would love to see some more of those, especially in the tennis world. I feel like sometimes men just misbehave in ways that women aren't allowed to. So, yeah.
We're going to roast Novak.
Yeah, just put a big mask over his face, maybe. Anyway.
Thank you so much for having us. This was so much fun. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I know. I wish we could go for 30 more minutes.
Zoom accounts. Come on.